welcome to A Gray Barn Rising. I'm here this evening, of course, with my little hound dog, Bootsy Beagle. And I'm, of course, drinking a cup of tea. This evening it's Cloud Mist Supreme, which is a beautiful early pick, early leaves green tea from China. And I'm reading the poems of the wonderful Russian poet Marina Tsvetayva. She lived from 1892 to 1941. And I'm going to be reading from two books. One is an entire collection of her poems, the selected poems, translated by Elaine Feinstein. But I'm going to begin the reading this evening with poems from this wonderful book, Three Russian Women Poets, translated and edited by Mary Maddock. This is a poem that my dear friend John Bradley, who's also a poet, discovered, I'd say maybe more than 30 years ago. I think he discovered this when we lived in Colorado, and he turned me on to it within a day or two. And it includes other women poets, two other women poets, Anna Akhmatova and Bella Akhmatulina. I, of course, had been familiar with Akhmatova's work at the time, but Bella Akhmatulina was a new poet for me, and certainly Marina Tsvetayva was a new poet for me. I was particularly drawn to her work, and so I wanted to begin by reading some of the poems in this book that Marina has written, and I'll move on to the selected poems. I mentioned that she was a Russian poet, and she lived during a pretty turbulent time in Russian history. Some of that comes through in her poems. This first one is an excerpt only from a longer poem called Verses to Block, the great poet Block. Your name is a bird in my hand. Your name is a piece of ice on my tongue, one movement of the lips. Your name is 5 letters. A ball caught in flight, a silver jingle bell in the mouth. A stone flung in a still pool, sobbing your name in the light clatter of night hoofs. Your loud name thunders. It speaks clearly into my temple, like the click of a guncock. Your name is, impossible. Your name is a kiss on the eyes, on cold, tender, unmoving lids. Your name is a kiss of snow, an icy blue swallow of spring water. Your name is a deep dream. Here's an untitled poem that begins, The Smell, Smell. The smell, smell of your cigar, your dark-skinned cigar, the smell. Rings, pens, eyes, Panamas, a dark blue night, Monaco. The strange smell, a little musty, in the red fog, the west. The lamppost and the rumble of the Thames. Like what else? Like what? Like Vienna, like ghosts, hay, a scene, betrayal. There's an intensity of vision in her sparseness. Ultimately, this ends up leading up to betrayal in this poem. I love the way her images accrete energy as they move forward. And I love what's left unsaid, but I love the sparseness in her work as well. This is called Earthly Name. A glass of water in a time of scorching thirst. Give it to me, or I'll die. I'm insistent, limp, more melodious, like a complaint on a hot day. I repeat everything, more and more brutal, again and again, as in the dark, when you want so much to sleep and can't. As if I'm free for a while from every worry in meadows of sleep-giving grass, insistent, unthinking, drumming like a child's first syllable, growing each moment more distinct like a thong around my throat. And if here I've only an earthly name, it doesn't really matter. You're going to find despair in Marina Tsvetayva's work as well. She lived kind of a tragic life. Her husband was, well, her father was one of the founders of the Pushkin Museum, so she came from a rather prominent family. And years later, her husband was shot as a counter-revolutionary, and she fell into deep despair. I believe he was shot, I believe it was 1939. And she felt isolated from people, and the Soviet government had banned her work and would not allow her to publish. So in 1941, she hung herself, and it was really rather tragic. But I think you can hear also elements of that despair earlier in her poems. And yet there's also this intense vigor and vision she has, this desire to survive and this desire to, well, as they say, speak truth to power. So I want to move now to some of her poems in the selected poetry. I don't know if you can pick up or not, but Bootsy is snoring up a storm suddenly. Well, I just woke her up. Yeah. It's like a nice bass tone to my voice. This is called You Loved Me. You loved me, and your lies had their own probity. There was a truth in every falsehood. Your love went far beyond any possible boundary, as no one else's could. Your love seemed to last even longer than time itself. Now you wave your hand, and suddenly your love for me is over. That is the truth in 5 words. And I'd like to close with her poem for Boris Pasternak, a writer that I would imagine viewers of this program are familiar with. He wrote Dr. Zhivago, among other great works. This poem was written in 1925, titled To Boris Pasternak. Distance, versts, miles divide us. They've dispersed us to make us behave quietly at our different ends of the earth. Distance, how many miles of it lie between us now? Disconnected, crucified, then dissected. And they don't know. It unites us. Our spirits of sinews fuse. There's no discord between us, though our separated pieces lie outside the moat for eagles. This conspiracy of miles has not yet disconcerted us, however much they've pushed us like orphans into backwaters. What then? Well, now it's March, and we're scattered like some pack of cards. Those are a few of the poems of the Russian poet Marina Tsvetayva. Again, I read from her selected poetry, as well as 3 Russian women poets. I hope that you enjoyed the program, and I hope you seek out more of the poetry of Marina Tsvetayva.